Hello, good morning everyone. So today we are going to talk about the Unit 3, the continuation of our Unit 2, which is the law enforcement, the first pillar of the criminal justice system. Now we are going to talk about the prosecution. So first and foremost, I would like to have a review that first topic that we had is the history or the introduction of the criminal justice system. The unit 1 is the law enforcement, which is the first pillar, and now we are going to talk about the second pillar. So this one is our unit 3, the prosecution. As you can see, the UILO, to understand the rule and function of prosecution in the Philippine criminal justice system. Second is to demonstrate the concept and prosecution in criminal justice system. And the third one is differentiate preliminary investigation with inquest proceedings. So we are going to go to the abstraction wherein we can find the discussions or the content of this unit. So what is this prosecution pillar? So this would be the second pillar, takes care of the investigation of the complaint. As you can see, as you can understand the unit 1, that the role of the police officer is to arrest, to investigate, and to provide evidence of his guilt. So what would be the function of the prosecution pillar? So before that, we are going to talk about the different courts belong to court in the Philippines. We have the RTC, the MTC, the MCTC, the Court of Appeals, and the Supreme Court. Okay, so who are these people behind this prosecution pillar? Is one of these is the provincial prosecutor, the city prosecutor. So this prosecutor, as I've said before, that the prosecutor will determine the probable cause of the specific case. So meaning to say, if the person or in the police part, the part of the first pillar will arrest a person, then they will investigate, then they will file a case to prosecutor, and prosecutor now will determine the probable cause. So if ever there is a probable cause, then we will go to preliminary investigation. So later, we are going to talk about preliminary investigation. So we have here the three main functions of prosecution pillar. So what are those? We have to conduct preliminary investigation, to conduct inquest proceeding, to act as a lawyer of the state in criminal prosecution. As you can see in a court, we have the prosecution and defendant. Okay, the defendant. So duha na siya ka grupo, the prosecution and the defendant. So si prosecution will act as a lawyer to the victim, okay, to the victim or to the immediate family of the victim, while the defendant lawyer, na po siya kaugalingong lawyer, and those defendant, part of the defendant are the suspected person or the accused person. Okay, as you can see, we have two groups in the court in a proceeding wherein we have the prosecution and we have also the defendant. In a prosecution, what we can see there is the lawyer or the prosecutor will act as a lawyer to the victim or to the immediate family. Then the defendant will napod sila kaugalingong lawyer, and on part of the defendant, those are the suspected person or the accused person. So how are those? Prosecution is the process or method whereby accusation are brought before the court justice to determine the guilt of innocence. Okay? So si prosecutor will determine the guilt or innocence of the accused. Meaning to say, he or she will determine the probable cause. So if ever ma'am there is no probable cause or nakita ni prosecutor na lack of evidence or wala kayo siya saktong ebidensya, so the prosecutor will dismiss the case or dili na siya ipadayon into preliminary investigation. So meaning to say, si police officer is dako kayo siya ag rule in terms of of this proceeding, of this system. Kay sila man jud ang pinakauna nga step. So since sila ang pinakauna nga step, so they must gather the perfect or the 100% evidence to prove, no, to prove para ma-determine pod ni prosecutor nga naa jud di ay kaso ni. So ato ning ipadayon. So that would be the goal of the prosecution. Then who are the prosecutor refers to a person who is quasi-judicial officer who assumes full discretion and control over a criminal case in the administration of justice, represent the people of the Philippines in a criminal proceeding. So as I've said, the prosecutor, si prosecutor will act as a lawyer on the part of prosecution wherein iyahang idepensa ang part sa victim or the immediate family. Okay? So if wala, pwede maadto ni PAW or something like that. But then again, the assigned prosecution or the assigned prosecutor of that particular city, sila ang modepensa ana. So si prosecutor. Usually na sila sa nag-opisina na sila sa mismo sa court. It could be the MTC or the RTC. Unsa nang MTC, ma? Municipal Trial Court. RTC is Regional Trial Court. Okay, so duties of prosecution to conduct preliminary investigation. So you read this one. Then, National Prosecution Service is under the supervision and control of the Department of Justice, the DOJ, and composed of Chief State Prosecutor or Prosecutorial Staff, Regional State Prosecution Offices, Provincial and City Prosecution Offices. Then we are talking about here the Philippine prosecution system. So we have here adversarial, inquisitorial. Anyways, this adversarial, inquisitorial, we are using or we are adopting in mixed system. Meaning we are using adversarial and we are also using inquisitorial. So what is this adversarial? This is a system in which the victim or his representative have the primary responsibility for finding and presenting evidence in court, wherein we apply this one. Of course, here in the Philippines, evidence is very important. That is why the logo of the law is murag timbangan nga na ay mas bugat. So meaning to say, pinaka-importante ang ebidensya to prove the guilt of the person. While inquisitorial is judges searches facts, listens to witness, be taken to investigate, which is we also apply this one because as you can see in the movie or you already tawag nini kaning witness in a court proceedings, naa jud na dito na ay testimony of the witnesses, and of course the judges also, aside from the lawyers, aside from the police officer, they will gather evidences and it must be presented in the court. That is why we applied mixed system in the Philippines. Then we have also the early history of punishment. So you read this one. So this is very understandable. And we go to the three broad categories of crime: sensational crime, street crime, corporate crime, white-collar crime, and organized crime. So you read this one. Certain offenses are selected for their sensational nature and made in national issues. Much of what we know about crime comes from media. So sensational crime, those are person who committed a crime through having an information from media. Okay, from media. So dili gyud na siya ingon nga reliable na mga sources sa media. It could be used in a criminal way. So we have here the plaintiff, the person who brings a case against another in a court of law. Respondent, the defendant in law. Okay, these are the terminologies. So you read this one, the terminologies. Dirita sa pinaka-importante, which is what is the difference between indeterminate sentence and determinate sentence. So when we say indeterminate sentence, those are cases or term of incarceration with stated minimum and maximum length 3 to 10 years. So meaning to say the punishment within 3 to 10 years. So kanarang maximum nga 3 to 10 years, those are what we called indeterminate sentence. So when we say indeterminate sentence, kanang time or years nga pila ang ilang i-render nga sentensya. Then the prisoner is eligible for parole after the minimum sentence has been served based on belief that the sentences fit the criminal indeterminate sentence, allow individualized sentence, and provide for sentencing flexibility. While this determinate sentence is a fixed term, okay? Meaning to say fixed. Ang indeterminate is maximum length 3 to 10 years. Pero si determinate sentence is only 3 years. Fixed term of incarceration, example is 3 years. These sentences are felt by many to be restrictive for rehabilitative purposes. Offenders know exactly how much time they have to serve. Okay, if you observe, na-assign maximum length of 3 to 10 years. Meaning to say, kani si Tampulano, mapriso ni siya within 8 to 10 years. So if you have the good performances inside the jail, so pwede ka maparelease sa 8 ka tuig, sa 8 years, 9 years, or 10 years is the maximum. Pero kung mingon tag determinate sentence, ang iyang sentensya is fixed. Okay, si Tampulano gihatulan og pagkasentensya og 5 ka tuig. Okay, that is fixed. While indeterminate sentence, dili siya fixed. Naa siya'y maximum. So kung nindot kag performance sa sulod, nakita nila nga naman ay GCTA, the good conduct time allowance. So nasli GCTA, so pwede kanila matagaan og parol. So pwede ka maparelease og sayo-sayo. While determinate sentence is fixed. Kung mingog 3 years, okay 3 years. Pag mingog 5 years, okay 5 years. So that is the difference between indeterminate sentence and determinate sentence. So we have also the various factors shaping length of prison terms. We have legal factors, the severity of the offense, the offender's prior criminal record, whether the offender used violence, whether the offender used weapons, whether the crime was committed for money. Okay, so we have also extra legal factors, social class, gender, age, victim characteristics. When we say gender, so in a prison, of course, they will separate the male and the female prisoner. So ila jud na siyang i-separate. Now, this is the most important thing to remember here on this unit, because preliminary investigation and inquest proceeding is the most important thing that we can understand. So the difference for this preliminary investigation is an inquiry or proceeding for the purpose of determining there is sufficient ground to engender a well-founded belief that a crime cognizable by the RTC or the Regional Trial Court has been committed and that respondent is probably guilty thereof and should be held for trial. Meaning to say, mukandak lang kag preliminary investigation on the part of the prosecution kung there is a sufficient ground. So meaning to say, sakto nga ebidensya nga imo siyang kasuhan. So there is a sufficient evidence na agyod siya'y saktong ebidensya. Pero if ever wala, so you can eliminate the case. So dili nimo ipadayon ang case. Always remember, preliminary investigation must be done before court trial. So wala pa na korte, wala pa na sa court. Naa pa ni siya sa stage sa prosecution. Wala pa siya sa court, kundi naa pa siya sa stage sa prosecution. Now, what is inquest proceeding? It is an informal and summary investigation conducted by a public prosecutor in criminal case involving person arrested and detained without the benefit of a warrant of arrest issued by the court. The purpose of determining whether or not said person should remain under custody and correspondingly be charged in court. So si inquest proceeding katuning na-involve ani katong mga usually ang na-involve ani is warrantless arrest. Okay? Katong walay mga excuse me. Katong mga walay warrant ang na-involve, kinahanglan ma-inquest na sila. They should be on inquest proceedings. So dapat na ano na siya informal or summary investigation conducted. The purpose for this is to determine whether or not said person should remain under custody. So preliminary investigation, of course, nananadjud na siya case. So nanana siya warrant. So gitagaag warrant, gidakop. So gikandakan og preliminary investigation kung duna ba jud saktong ebidensya. While si inquest proceedings wala ni sila warrant of arrest, kinahanglan ni sila i-inquest ni siya within the given period of time para ma-determine kung ipabilin ba siya sa kustodiya sa police. Then right after that one, pakasuhan siya or mag-file of case against that person. Okay? That is preliminary investigation and inquest proceedings. So here in preliminary investigation, always remember that in RTC or katulang ning mga kaso nga niabot og 4 years, 2 months, and 1 day. That is according to Criminal Procedure Rule 112, Rules of Court. Always remember, katong mga dili na or katong mga case like mga light lang nga mga kaso nga wala niabot og 4 years, no need to conduct preliminary investigation. So katulang always remember that when you conduct preliminary investigation, it should have or the penalty or of that specific case is 4 years, 2 months, and 1 day. Okay, so the following may conduct preliminary investigations. It could be the provincial or city prosecutor, the national and regional state prosecutor. The officers may be authorized by law. Pero dapat mga lawyer jud na siya. Usually jud sa Philippine system, ang mukandak og preliminary investigation is the city or provincial or municipal prosecutor. Okay, so information, we're done with that. Inquest. It is an informal and summary. Okay, we're done with this. Without warrant of arrest or not said person should remain under custody. So that is inquest. Bail. Okay, si bail is katunang muhatag ka o kwarta for a temporary release. It is a security given for the release of a person in custody of the law furnished by him or a bandsman to guarantee his appearance before any court. Sa purpose sa bail is you're going to give a money in return or to surely that you are going to appear in the court. So gidakop ka, so naka-bail, subot pasabot, pwede ka makagawas pero dili assurance nga na okay ng tanan. It's just an assurance that you are going to go back to the court whenever the prosecutor will kaning ask for your appearance. Okay, so maybe given a form of corporate surety, property bond, cash deposit, or recognizance. So depende po na og pila ang i-bail sa different cases. So in different cases with a different law, naap na sila naka-specify dito og pila ang imuhang i-bail. So if you can have a money, then you can bail, then you have this. Always remember that bail is just a temporary release. It doesn't mean that na okay ng tanan, wala na kay kaso. It's just a temporary release and make assured that you're going to appear in the court whenever the judge or the prosecutor will ask for your appearance. Okay, so Office of the Ombudsman, the prosecutory arm of the government against erring government officials who committed graft and corrupt practices. Okay, kaning mag-commit og mga kaning mga corruption na apod din sila ikaw ganingong court. So later ito nang may sagutan. Complaint and information. subscribed by the offended party in hinipis or other officer, then either in the court or prosecutor's office, then must be made under oath. Okay, kung mo-complain mo, the offended party, meaning the victim, pwede siya maka-complain in any peace officer or other officer. Pwede ka mo-dool sa police officer. The first venue yun is the police station. Then where to file, either in the court or the prosecutor's office. But you need to wait for the investigation of the police officer, and it's the police officer ang move forward ni prosecutor. Then the requirements must be under oath. Okay? So, under oath. While the information by the prosecutor court need not be under oath. It's just the information. Okay, what is complaint? Complaint is a sworn written statement charging a person with an offense subscribed by he offended party, any peace officer or other public officer. So, sworn written statement ni siya. Ning complain ka, pag mo complain ka, while nag-istorya ka, it must be reduced in writing with your lawyer, with the police officer. So, it must be reduced in writing. Then, information is an accusation in writing charging a person with an offense subscribed by the prosecutor and filed with the court. So that is the overall explanation for our Unit 3. Anyway, you don't need to worry. You don't need to worry because mapalawak ni siya for the discussion of a lawyer with your with your instructor, which is a lawyer. So they are going to discuss this in deeply because here in CGS is just a simple introduction. So I am going to introduce to you some of the terms and some of the ways and some of the systems, but in a deeper understanding or in a deeper explanation for this is for the lawyer itself because mao man ni ilang trabaho. So that would be all for our Unit 3, and please wait for the instruction of our activities as well as our quizzes. Thank you so much everyone and have a good day.